So I put a link in the chat to a shared document, a Google Doc, that talks about the Solsmart New Hampshire cohort. How many of you have heard about this program? Have you gotten an email? Show of hands. Okay.
But
Uh,
Frank,
yep.
I don't see any link in the chat unless I'm missing something.
No, I don't see it. There it is.
Here, it should
Yes,
be there.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, should be there. Um, so I'm not going to bother sharing my screen. Everyone can either open the doc or read it later. But in a nutshell, this program is pretty exciting, actually. And we work with a lot of local towns in our regions about we get some planning and zoning questions around solar, both concerns as well as questions about creating opportunity for solar as well. So we try to address both. And this program, SoulSmart, there are some towns like Peterborough and Keene, for example, and maybe some on the seacoast, Katrin, that have participated in the full program, which they get a bronze or gold level, depending on how far they go in creating smart zoning for solar, and also permitting a good permitting process with a checklist and all. This program is a little bit different in that it is a cohort. It'll be the goal is to get, 15 or 20 towns as part of this group and go through this program together with SoulSmart and Clean Energy New Hampshire to learn and also review some of their zoning that's in place and then take some actions. There's a timeline in this two-pager that talks about when things will happen, but the general order will be next week on the 22nd, there's going to be a information session, which I strongly encourage folks to attend. And there's a link in that document to join that Zoom meeting. Um, you can also sign up for program updates as well. But again, that's January 22nd at noon. That's an information session. The program itself will be getting the enrollment will be starting in February. The goal is to get some enrollment forms out sometime next week, according to Sarah, and then the following weeks after that. To sign up for the initial zoning review. And then in March, there'll be a kickoff where they'll have some meetings and discussions about trends and zoning reviews of your particular town, and then preparing for next steps for your town. April will focus on the planning and zoning part of it. And then May, they'll be discussing and reviewing permitting and steps that towns should have and possibly present to the public should they be interested in taking those steps. Um, the the audience that we're hoping to get for this is the municipal staff, volunteers, anybody who's on a planning board, a zoning board, select board members, energy committee members, anybody who's involved in their town um, for this. It doesn't cost anything, it's free. Um, so we also would like for folks to pass this around to anybody they work with in their towns or know in their towns who might be interested in it. And there's a link, again, there's a link in this document to the information session and the enrollment process. So more specifically, the steps, the program itself, the first step will be a zoning review. Towns will that have signed up for the cohort will work with SoulSmart and Clean Energy New Hampshire. Or SoulSmart will review the zoning that's currently in place and give a report. I'm told that it will take maybe a couple of weeks to review it at most. Um, and then the next step would be to review the permitting checklist or process that might be in town for solar. A lot of towns don't even have the word solar in their zoning, so they're starting from scratch. there's also going to be some one-on-one and smaller group support sessions with Solsmart to address more specific questions that staff or volunteers or board members might have. There's also going to be opportunities to work alongside peers. Some towns are further along than others, so they might want to share some of their success stories or some of their fears or failures. I don't want to call them failures, but insufficient zoning. And then in the end, any town that goes through this, and it would be a requirement of at least one person from that town that would qualify for the bronze certification through Solsmart. Again, the big focus is not so much on the certification in this program, just like like it would be for the full-blown Solsmart program, but a lot of those things will be touched on and opportunities to ask questions about it will be presented. So that, in a very small nutshell, is what the program's about. Like I said, we're really excited about this to get folks on board for this program.
Can I add too that actually SoSmart is just starting to work on distributed wind as well. So if that's something that's interesting to a town, even if you have started to work on it, it's a great update.
Yeah, very interesting.
Could I ask a very simple question? Maybe a very naive question?
That's fine.
I'm in a very small town, Kensington. I
Mhm.
think the extent of permitting that we do is that there might be someone you call if you do some very specific work. When would we, like, are we talking about what is the goal of solar permitting? Like, are we trying to make it easier to do solar? Are we trying to make it safer?
Let me answer that one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So both. So what we're trying to do is, first of all, we want to protect the community from something that they haven't thought about or haven't had a chance to think about. So we want to make sure that they've really thought about what they want for their community. So from that side, and then also one thing that I know in talking with a lot of solar installers is that if they go to a town's webpage and see that there's no ordinance for solar, they're like, oh, do I really want to put my time and energy into this town? I mean, I could put in hours and hours and hours, and then they could just decide not to let the plan go through. So you're encouraging the kind of solar that your community wants, and you're having the ability to discourage what you don't want. So a lot of towns have found that they have nothing in place, and then somebody comes in and says, I want to put 35 acres into solar, and they freak out and they're like, okay, no solar's allowed anywhere, and it just like shuts it down. Another town had right here in Durham, one person put one tracker in front of their house, and it completely freaked them out, and they put all these new rules in, and they hadn't really had a chance to think about what they wanted in there. So this really gives you a chance to preemptively, calmly think about it, so it helps the community and increases solar in the ways that you're hoping to have it go.
Awesome.
Yeah, and another example would be a town in my area where they arbitrarily put a limit on the number of panels that can be on a property, and they capped it at 50. And it was a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to something. But had there been a little bit of planning ahead of time and even a rudimentary permit process, that could have been avoided. It could have been more reasonable. So things like that will be addressed in that program. There are some towns like Keene, I know where I live, we have an actual checklist on our website if you want to see an example of a checklist. It's pretty basic permitting checklist.
And at least so far, you're not afraid that this gives towns the opportunity to create zoning laws that restrict solar off the bat?
The reason that we are working with SoSmart is because they have done this many times, and they are very aware of that potential. And then they really work with the town to understand what rules are going forward. But in the end, ultimately, it is the town's choice, and it's up to them. But if you have knowledge and you understand what you're doing, and you really looked into it, it's much more helpful than if you just, like we were talking about, all these knee-jerk reactions that we've been seeing.
Yeah,
and just
I
stopping
suppose
altogether.
that's better than trying to have a a fight or something
Yeah.
the moment.
And emotions get heated and it's all very passionate when right now it's a great time when it's not, you're not in the middle of this, because a lot of rules have been made for one instance, like Frank was saying, you know, this one thing happened, this number, and now we're picking a random number.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we move to Bill on electrification coaching?
Yeah, I had just a quick question about, I'm also in a really small town. We don't have zoning and barely any ordinances. So like what might the final product be that we would get out of this? And how much time commitment do you expect it to be?
So the very first step when you enroll is they will review what you currently have, and it's a very case by case. They're going to look at each town individually and address your specific needs. Obviously, a town of 500 has different concerns than 25,000 like Keene does. So, yeah, they'll look at it. They don't want it to make it too onerous for smaller towns.
It's supposed to be
And
a
the final
5 month
product would be, sorry?
it's supposed to be about a 5 month process. So
And how much time commitment?
I think it depends a little bit on the size of your town, but also you're going to have the meetings once a month, right, Frank?
Yeah, so yeah, there's monthly virtual workshops and then there's let's see, there's a list here.
Little homework.
Yeah, there's a little bit of homework you have to do on your side, I think. Pretty minimal. Let's see here. Time commitments, one virtual meeting with the entire cohort per month, which will be recorded if you cannot attend the real time. Some in between meeting work that you might have to do, like review the resources in your town. What do you have for zoning, that sort of thing. And then optional virtual opportunities to get additional help. So it's more of a one-on-one meetings you can set up or drop-in sessions. So it's not a huge amount of time commitment, but you do have to have somebody who's dedicated to following, going through with the process. Like I said, it's not nearly as much as involved as the full Solsmart certification that you may have heard about.
Yeah, and then at the end, we would have some sort of document that says, here's what the town of Tamworth thinks we should be doing with solar, or like, what is that product?
That's what the goal is they right from the beginning, they're going to review what you have, and then in the end, two things, some recommendations on zoning and also recommendations on permitting or checklist process. Those are the two big takeaways from.
So we'd get some kind of solar zoning policy out of this?
They will work with you to draft, to begin the drafting process. Katrin, I don't know that it's designed to be
So if
finished.
you,
Yeah.
like in my town, we have a whole bunch of ordinances. So you're going to be able to have a nice updated ordinance you can go ahead and have presented to your town to vote on in March or wherever you vote for town meeting, next year. If you don't have any ordinances and you're just doing this because you really want to know what happens if somebody comes and applies, then you at least have information, you will have thought about it and have some resources. So you can really kind of go forward with those decisions with something. So if you're not a town with ordinances, we're not going to tell you have to all of a sudden have one. But it's really going to give you resources that you didn't have before.
Okay.
Again, that's on the 22nd is the information session. So we strongly encourage folks to attend that, and they can answer a lot more specific questions at that point.
And they did say that they're looking for a maximum of, for each cohort of 15. We would love to have 2 cohorts where we really have like maybe the bigger communities and then have like a smaller one. So the more people that join, the better, because it's going to give you more specific narrowing into what your needs are. So just join us.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to move on to Bill Coder, who's going to talk to us about electrification coaching.
Well, hello. There was actually a couple of other coaches in the room here, so I'm not the strong expert. I've been at this for about 6 or 8 months, and I'll just give it a whirl and hopefully get others to pitch in here where they have information to provide. Let's see, so go to sharing the screen. Um, so is that coming through?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So basically, electrification coaching is just a set of volunteers that have some experience, either training or their own personal experience with home electrification and energy efficiency. And we're primarily targeting homeowners, and we're coming at it as fellow consumers, not really energy professionals. There's, in my mind, there's some analogy here with the circuit riders who are kind of working with municipalities, and in the case of coaches, we're working with homeowners. So some of the programs and methods, we want to primarily help individual homeowners figure out what their goals and plans around electrification are. That's assuming they already have some notion of electrification in general. And then we can get into working with them on specific projects. And some of the things would be to help identify any potential obstacles or trade-offs that they might need to consider, and also help identify vendors, and at some point potentially help them go over bids that they get for work being done. Now, there's also a class of people that don't know what the word electrification means. And so in my mind, we're going to have to try to spread the word through community outreach. And that's a part that I'm going to be working on myself. So a few of us in New Hampshire got trained from Rewiring America. That's an organization that is probably familiar to many of this audience. They certainly got involved in promoting electrification. I think it was about 4 years ago, and predating the IRA. But when the IRA came out, they really went like gangbusters, putting together tools and information regarding incentives. So the training from Rewiring America was about a month long. There's weekly hour-and-a-half sessions that are kind of the lecture part. And then there's breakouts with guides who are former trainees and coaches. I see an analogy here to having grad students working with college students. And that, to me, was an important facet. About a quarter or more of the lectures and coursework was around air source heat pumps. And of course, along with that, one needs to be aware of the weatherization, insulation, and air sealing to make heat pumps work well. And other topics around solar, a little bit on batteries, solar or hot water heating using heat pumps, induction stoves, kind of rounded things out. There was a good segment about electrical service and panel issues that I found very helpful. And then the certification that Rewiring America grants you as, I don't know exactly where that's going to, how many people would recognize the certification, but at any rate, it requires you to do a capstone project, which really is getting you comfortable with a client of your own choice to do some of the work that you would want to be doing in a more general community. There are about 1,000 people that have gone through the Rewiring America training, and I think there's a half dozen in New Hampshire, and I think Patsy, I think, went through it as well.
Yeah, I think there's actually 6 of us now in the Monadnock region
All right.
done this. It's hard for you to find out, but
Yeah.
no. So I'm going to keep you posted on that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks.
Okay.
Let me, okay.
Some important issues that I think will come up in a lot of the coaching situations, especially around heat pumps. There's kind of a history that heat pumps may have been tried in a few places and people weren't all that happy with them. And the technology of heat pumps has really gone through a lot of improvements. And so now there's cold climate heat pumps, but there might be some audience that has heard from their neighbors that, oh, my heat pump really wasn't working out the way I think it should have. And Rewiring America did spend a fair amount of time kind of going through how you can select a heat pump properly for the cold climates. In New Hampshire, the housing stock is, there's a statistic that I found that about 40% of the housing stock is pre-1970s in construction. About 1980s, 200 amp electrical service became commonplace. So that means there's probably as much as half of the New Hampshire housing stock that could be stuck at 100 amp service or lower. And this is a complication factor if you want to put in a heat pump that might be rated at 50 amps, and the house may or may not be able to accommodate that. There's some complexity to the federal and state incentive plans. Right now, a lot of people would be able to make use of the federal tax credits, but there are some specific provisions about which heat pumps qualify, and for electric vehicles, there are also some restrictions. And in the case of some HVAC companies, they may or may not be willing to try to get into something as far off their beat as tax credits, which sort of brings up coaches aren't, again, professionals. We're not going to be doling out advice on taxes beyond pointing somebody at the IRS rules that would apply. So again, not everybody is familiar with electrification, and I at least see the need for doing some outreach in my community, because I think there's some audiences that don't really understand what electrification is about. The primary thing that I'm addressing is that there's a much more efficient electrical approach to many of the functions that currently are supported by like internal combustion or burning oil or gas for heat. There's about a 3 times efficient energy gain with electrical machinery. So that efficiency means lower operating costs and reductions in pollution. But I'm really not approaching the electrification so much as a climate issue, unless somebody is really motivated in that direction. There's an awful lot about the financial benefits now, and also comfort, when you can tell somebody that switching from an oil burner to heat pump is their primary source of heat. And by the way, you get air conditioning for free or as a side benefit. That's kind of the message. So there are some regional electrification coaching type initiatives, and Patsy and Frank are part of this Monadnock Sustainability Hub, Electrify Monadnock. So I will just say briefly what I've understood, but they can fill in the blanks here too. It looks like the towns of Peterborough and Harrisville obtained an EPA grant for getting low and moderate income householders to benefit from a rebate program that's separate from what the IRA program is, that has yet to roll out to that community. It looks like they had about 10 people the other night getting oriented around coaching. So there's good numbers of coaches in that region, and I think the Sustainability Hub has made it well known in their communities that there are these advantages to electrification. And I've also seen in the Plymouth and Hillsborough area, they have some long-standing organizations around promoting solar. I don't think they have generalized, though, to things like heat pumps. Last fall, I attended a New Hampshire Energy Expo, which I guess is a little bit of hyperbole. Didn't cover the whole state, but there were 5 energy commissions that or committees that got together and put on an exhibition and provided some consumer education, and they had suppliers on hand. And there may be other examples where multiple towns and energy commissions have gotten together. And I think it'd be good if people know about that to let me know. So challenges and opportunities. I think the big challenge is around electrification is being able to scale up this coaching activity. If there's 10-ish people in New Hampshire right now that went through the Rewiring America training, that's still a little thin, although it seems like the Monadnock region is doing their best to build up quite an organization. Personally, I haven't met anybody in my region around Bedford that went through the coaching training, and I haven't heard of another person that's aspiring to do this work. If anybody out there knows one, I'd be great to link up with them. And reaching potential audiences for this message or sets of clients beyond some of the early adopters of electrification and people that are motivated around climate, I think there's really going to have to be more scaling out to get the message to people that aren't already self-directed in that way. And I think landlords is another area where it would be highly leveraged if we could somehow crack into the rental property arena. One thing I've run into is I've been doing some coaching outside my specific community, and I don't have a lot of information to share about installation companies. Rewiring America has some aspirations. They're going to set up a database to help with this, but it really is only as good as what information they get from their field of coaches. I think there's some opportunities here. Obviously, New Hampshire Network is a great example of networking, and I think some of the topics I raise as challenges, just the informal networking that, like even this event that we're having today, will help attack some of those challenges. And there's certainly cases where the energy committees have sponsored things like EV shows and Earth Day events that are ideal for getting coaching people exposed to the communities. And so I would urge anybody that's on an energy commission setting up those kinds of events to consider including coaches if you can find them. And there are probably other opportunities that hadn't occurred to me, and I'd kind of be interested to open it up and let people ask questions or pipe in with ideas. And the slide is some references to topics that I've raised throughout the few minutes we've been talking.
So, Bill, I have two questions. One, so it sounds like this talk has two purposes. One, to try to get us incentivized to get more coaches. So maybe some of us might be interested in becoming coaches. And then discussing or advertising the fact that there are coaches that other towns can take advantage of. So for example, my town energy committee, Merrimack, is having an electric vehicle and solar panel fair again this year on April 26th.
Yep.
And so it would be great to invite a coach, whether it's you or Patsy or somebody, to like what, set up a table and be kind of like Lucy and Peanuts, like the coach is in, come and chat with me. Is that the kind of thing you're envisioning?
That, yeah, as you know, I was there with a small group last year,
Third act, yeah.
and that was more or less what we did.
Okay.
I don't know in total how many people we ended up talking with, but it was a good way to kind of get our feet wet. The group I was with was Third Act, New Hampshire. I'm a volunteer with them. And I will also just make a note that we're just starting an initiative. I did a survey and found that we have people in Third Act that represent 66 towns across the state.
Oh.
And then I looked to see how many of those towns have energy commissions or committees. And the good news is that there are about 2/3 of the towns that do. That means there's a third that don't. And maybe that gives us some boots on the ground to try to stir up a few more towns to get energy committees and share some of the information like this Solsmart program in a wide audience. I know that's a big function of the circuit riders, but there may be other places where we can help.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like in Merrimack, we had a button-up workshop. We had another workshop specifically on heat pumps. And sadly, they weren't particularly well attended, like 5 people came, right?
Yeah.
But for those of you who are coaches, so if we were to do something like that, again, obviously we had the one heat pump speaker or whatever, but is it the kind of thing where we could say, here's a list of electrification coaches that if you've got questions or just give them one name, you could call them? Because one of the things we tried to do was interview people in Merrimack that had put up solar panels to kind of be like a reference list. Like if you're thinking of installing solar panels, contact Joe who over there who installed them already. But if you guys sort of have all that already, that would be a great time saver for me rather than interviewing people who put up solar panels if you guys already have that info.
Yeah, that's I guess kind of where I would like to be heading. But like I said, I haven't been able to connect with anybody that is in the local region around me that's been trying to get into this coaching act.
Okay. Well, Patsy has her hand up.
I'd like to tell you a couple things about the grant that Peterborough received. And one thing that's really good about it is it also included funds for workforce development. So they've been doing workforce development with Landmark College and Frank, tell me what's his name?
It's yeah, the
Well, anyway, it's New Hampshire State. Andy Duncan.
Yeah.
And
Lakes
that
region.
grant also includes doing electrification in 200 homes over 3 years. So the coaches in the Monadnock region are going to be very busy with that project. in Peterborough and Harrisville, and then trying to roll this out in the town that I live in, maybe Marlboro, Keene, so I don't know if we're going to be able to go on a tour around the state to do tabling because we're going to be really busy.
Right.
So but I think that the Manic Sustainability Hub is really trying to get a really good support system for the coaches in our area. And I think sharing that with other areas is the valuable thing that the hub can do. So
Yeah,
I'm not,
that's a pilot program that Patsy's talking about, and it's just getting rolling. And Patsy's done a few coaching sessions, as have a couple others in that program, but the official rollout is going to be in Peterborough and Harrisville. And then once we have a good mechanism, or Monadnock Sustainability Hub has a good mechanism and procedures in place for implementing this and enrolling folks and following through, then I think there'll be a pretty solid example for other areas to follow. Correct? Is that correct, Patsy? That's kind of the goal.
that's the goal right now. Yeah, we want to get it all our ducks in a row before we start. We have forms to fill out and evaluations and the keeping track of who's a coach and who's a client and how they're getting matched. We have a program director that's doing that. So, if I strongly encourage anybody to go do Rewiring America's program. I think Bill did a great job of explaining that to us, and it's really great. Learn a lot. And, I'm not an expert, but I know how to help people get, through signing up with New Hampshire Saves and start doing weatherization. I haven't put a solar panel on my home, for example. So I'm going to then, send my clients to another coach if they want that, or I won't get matched with that kind of a client. So we're trying to work all that out. But it's been a really great experience so far.
Excellent. I have one maybe 5-minute agenda item if we're done with this, or do we have any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Zeke.
Yeah, I had a question and a comment. First, the comment, because ever since we started talking about Rewiring America, I've been getting a ton of Facebook ads about it, which is great because they're very exciting. I love Facebook ads. It draws in the craziest crowds. There have been some extremely popular Rewire America ads that went viral and had very interesting conversations. I only bring it up because I find the video itself is really funny and interesting. There's a celebrity person. I mean, I think they're a celebrity. I don't know if they are, but um, I love it. The actual question that I have is if anybody knows how often they do the coachings. I applied a while back, but I don't know. I haven't really heard back anything. Um,
The next one I think is starting in February, and they're actually asking coaches that exist now to kind of recommend people. So
Ooh.
I could probably do that for you, Zeke.
That would be awesome.
Just send it in. So give me your email. I'll go see if I can dig up that
Yeah, I'll post it on here.
information and see if we can get you going. I don't know why they're doing that. I took the class with Bill, I think it was last April or something like that,
That was
Bill.
May, yeah, May,
And
June.
then
Yeah.
that was the second one, and I think they've done 2 or 3 more, so at least.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I missed it. I missed something, or maybe they just didn't like my application. Who knows? Uh,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been very excited. This month actually marks an important month for us in our family because we are just about to install the last piece of equipment to fully electrify our house. Yeah, we're getting rid of our propane oven, and
Wow.
it's been a dream. Yeah, we're next Friday actually, so we're
You're a perfect coach then.
yeah, I don't know. I have some strong opinions sometimes that I need to tone down, but that's why I need the coaching.
If it's an induction stove, Zeke, you're going to love it.
It is. Yeah, we were holding off just because the propane furnace worked really well, but our propane company has been a pain in the butt to work with. So,
Gabrielle, you had a Anda?
A question, Bill, and when you listed the things that they cover in the training, it didn't include home batteries, and I'm wondering if there was anything in there because I am struggling on a personal home electrification journey process of trying to make sense of home batteries. Does it make sense? Should I do it?
Yeah, I think there was some supplementary information available about battery systems. I have a link to a training program that is offered. I think it's by a group in the northwest part of the country um, that I haven't looked at, but um, anyway, I've got a couple of references I could provide about incorporating batteries. I don't personally have direct experience, but um, actually one of the Rewiring America coaches did a separate session on that just recently for graduates. So I could put together an email to you. I think I've got your email.
You may. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
And that's a good example of just the power of networking here.
Yep. Well, the last thing I wanted to work on with you, are you guys seeing a map? Am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
All right. So, right, we got this lovely email from Clean Energy New Hampshire that let us know, right, that the CFI program was awarded a whole bunch of money to 49 applicants. And look, there's New Hampshire right there, right? And New Hampshire's been awarded 15 million, yay, through this CFI program. But as we read down here, we see while the funding is significant, you know, progress toward contracting and implementation depends on federal action in the coming weeks. We urge you to reach out to the governor's office to advocate for continued support and ensure these critical dollars remain on track. So I wanted to highlight that. I don't know if everybody on this call has already reached out to the governor's office. I particularly was wondering, other than saying, please continue to support CFI funding, for those of you in Clean Energy New Hampshire, did you have anything more specific that you would like us to ask if we're reaching out to new governor, you know, Kelly Ayotte?
I would say tout the economic benefits. It's a practical thing. I have an EV, Katrin has an EV, so we all know the practical aspect of it. But it has an economic impact as well. And I think the incoming governor, just like the previous governor, they look at things through an economic lens. So wouldn't hurt to mention that.
Okay.
And is it this program in particular that is in danger, or is it sort of a broad message?
Well, for the CFI grant, and I know Keene got one, they lumped on, a bunch of towns and entities lumped onto the same application from the state of New Hampshire. So it's spread throughout the whole state. So it's that specific to this CFI grant. I think that's what Mary Beth is focusing on.
Well, Tamworth, our little teeny weeny town of Tamworth, is also in there under the CFI grant.
Yeah.
But is it the CFI grant that's at risk, or are there broad other programs beyond the CFI grant? That's my question.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay, so the message, I'm just looking for like clarity on the message to the governor then.
I think it helps to have one message that's very clearly about the CFI grant and the importance of that specific grant, but also you can feel free to share your feelings about other issues as well.
Yeah, and I think since the CFI is so new and fresh in everyone's minds as of last Friday, I think I would emphasize that now. And then, like Katrin said, follow it up with, the IRA funding, the tax credits, that sort of thing. You can go on and on.
So what specifically does the governor have to do to support and ensure that these dollars remain on track? I guess that's part of what I wasn't clear about.
Yeah.
When we say support the CFI grant, what What does that mean?
Isn't the governor that signs off on the final acceptance of the monies?
Probably the executive council as well.
Yeah, so just the final word to say yes.
Oh boy, our lovely executive council.
And in our experience with the solar grant as well is that there are positions that need to either be created or at least it needs to be delegated to somebody to implement these programs. And if that doesn't happen through the governor and the executive council, then the money can sit there and not blow out to the communities that like Tamworth that have actually been awarded the funding. So that's the connection.
Got it. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. And I encourage everybody to write to the governor, and why not include the executive council? Because it's anything over, what is it? Anything over 20K, the executive council has to sign off.
That's
on it.
right.
So,
Yeah, I just put the contact info for Governor Ayotte in the chat.
thank you. All right. Anything else before we close the meeting? All right, then everybody, I will try to get February's meeting correct, the third Thursday at 3. I'll try to look at my calendar better next time. If you have particular topics that you want to talk about, feel free to send them to me. At the moment, I don't think we have a topic scheduled. So
I'm thinking the heat pump accelerator, Mary Beth, might be a good one. And there's some kickoff meetings happening, I think, next week, so we may know more. I'll reach out.
okay. And Catherine, you had your hand up?
Yes, sometimes I think it might be kind of nice not to have a topic for the whole time and
Right.
just talk about our own projects and what are our positives and negatives that we're running into.
Yeah. Yep, good idea. Right. So if there's no particular topic, I won't cancel. We'll just, come in and chat. All right. Okay, thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.